If you think you know what prison life is really like, think again, subscribe, like, and buckle up, because this story is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about justice. The cafeteria of Greystone Correctional Facility was a place where sound didn't travel right. The clang of metal trays, the murmur of inmates, the squeak of boots on concrete. All of it existed beneath a heavy tension that no one dared to name. On most days, the smell of the place was a mix of bleach, boiled cabbage, and something else. Something rancid, faintly sweet, like old grease that had been used too many times. It started with breakfast, or rather, what was left of it. On a gray morning in February, inmate Thomas Red Harland, serving a 25-year sentence for armed robbery, lifted a spoonful of oatmeal to his mouth and stopped. Floating on the surface was a piece of metal, a screw, blackened with grime. He stared at it for a long second, then turned his eyes to the guard. The guard, Officer Greeley, shrugged and told him to eat around it. By noon, word had spread through the block. "They're feeding us trash again," someone muttered. But this time, something was different. A few inmates began to save their trays, stacking them in secret, keeping bits of evidence. A slice of raw chicken, a half-melted carton of milk gone sour, a bowl of rice crawling with tiny black bugs. The next day, inmate Leonard Price, a quiet man who rarely spoke, collapsed in the yard. His lips were blue. His friends said he hadn't eaten since the previous morning. Medical staff claimed dehydration, but inmates whispered another word: poisoning. Behind bars, rumors spread like wildfire. Some said it was a food supplier cutting corners. Others said the kitchen staff, mostly low-level inmates working for pennies, had been ordered to reuse leftovers to save money. But there was one person who knew more than he should have: Miguel Soto, the prison cook. Soto had been in Greystone for 8 years, working in the kitchen for most of them. He'd seen it all: rats in the pantry, roaches in the bread bin, meat stored in plastic bags marked "not for human consumption." When Leonard Price was taken to the infirmary, something in Soto snapped. He kept quiet to keep his job, but now silence tasted worse than the food. That night, he wrote a letter. In it, he described everything: the expired supplies, the cost-cutting, the lack of oversight. He addressed it to an investigative journalist named Carla Monroe, known for her exposés on prison corruption. He didn't expect her to ever see it, but Carla did. 2 weeks later, a brown envelope landed on her desk in Chicago. Inside were photographs, grainy, taken from an old flip phone. Rotten chicken, maggots and beans, a menu label meat substitute, the ingredients unreadable except for 2 words: industrial protein. Carla had covered prisons before, but nothing like this. She called the number scribbled in the letter's corner, a smuggled phone hidden inside Greystone. Soto answered in a whisper. "You don't understand," he said. "People are getting sick. They're dying. The warden knows." Then, a click. The next morning, Soto didn't report to the kitchen. By evening, guards were sweeping through Block D, shouting orders. Word spread fast. Soto was missing. His bunk was empty, his personal items gone, and in the trash can beneath his bed, they found a single note. It said, "They're not feeding us food anymore." That night, the entire facility went into lockdown. Officers searched the kitchens, the storage rooms, the trash bins. Nothing. But in the freezer, behind a stack of unmarked boxes, they found something wrapped in brown paper. It wasn't meat. It was a small, torn piece of cloth, part of an inmate's uniform, soaked in blood. The warden issued a statement to local news the next day. All allegations regarding food safety at Greystone are false. No inmate is missing. Mr. Soto was transferred. But that wasn't true. Carla checked with the Department of Corrections. There was no record of a transfer, no paperwork, no bus logs. Miguel Soto had vanished inside Greystone, as if he'd been swallowed whole by the system he worked for. A week later, Carla received another envelope. No return address this time. Inside were 3 photographs. The first showed a kitchen door, labeled "Authorized Personnel Only." The second, a meal tray filled with unrecognizable mush. And the third, a blurry image taken from inside a walk-in freezer. In the corner of the photo, a man's arm was visible. It was pale, stiff, and still wearing a prison cook's uniform. Carla's hands trembled. The timestamp on the image was from the night Miguel Soto went missing. She stared at the freezer door in the picture, a heavy metal latch, sealed tight, and scribbled across the bottom of the image were 3 words that made her blood run cold. This is just beginning. Snow was falling lightly, the kind that made everything look too peaceful for what was really going on behind those walls. Greystone loomed in the distance like a concrete beast, gray, silent, indifferent. The kind of place where a man could disappear without a trace, and nobody outside would ever know. She adjusted her recorder, hit record, and whispered, "This is Carla Monroe, documenting events inside Louisiana's Greystone Correctional. Inmate and kitchen worker Miguel Soto vanished 12 days ago after exposing what could be the largest food corruption scandal in the state's prison system." The wind rattled her car door as she glanced at the gates. Every instinct told her she wasn't supposed to be there, but Carla didn't do safe. She'd made her career by crossing lines, especially the invisible ones that kept truth buried. She turned the ignition, gripping the wheel. "If Soto's still alive," she murmured, "someone in there knows where." Inside the prison, Warden Frank Duval was pacing his office, his tie loosened, eyes cold with irritation. Across from him sat Officer Greeley, the same man who'd told Red Harlan to eat around it. "You said he was transferred." Duval snapped. "Where's the paperwork?" Greeley shifted uncomfortably. "I was told the DOC would handle that part, sir." "The DOC?" Duval leaned forward. "You think they're going to clean up your mess?" Soto talked. "That means we got eyes on us now, journalists, watchdogs, maybe even the feds." Greeley hesitated. "What do we do if the story gets out?" Duval smiled faintly, the kind of smile that never reaches eyes. "We make sure the story ends before it starts." 2 days later, Carla received an anonymous text message. It came from an untraceable number and contained only one line. "Kitchen. After lights out. Ask for Red." At first, she thought it was a prank, until she realized Red was a nickname of Thomas Harlan, the inmate who'd found the screw in his breakfast. That night, Carla disguised herself as a DOC contractor, carrying a clipboard and wearing a reflective vest. With the help of a sympathetic guard, a young officer named Daniels, who believed the warden was covering something up, she slipped inside under the pretense of inspecting the prison's electrical system. The hallways were dim, humming with flickering lights. Every sound, the creak of a door, the distant clatter of chains, seemed magnified. Daniels led her through a side entrance and into the kitchen area. It smelled of bleach and iron. Behind the stainless steel counters, Red Harlan was mopping the floor. His eyes met hers, wary but sharp. "You're her," he said quietly. "The reporter." Carla nodded. "You sent the message?" He glanced around before leaning closer. "They think we don't notice, but we do." Soto didn't run. They took him. He found out the food wasn't from the state suppliers. It's coming from somewhere else. Some private company the warden deals with under the table. Expired stuff. Contaminated. They change the labels, repackage it, and feed it to us. Carla's stomach turned. "Do you have proof?" Red nodded toward the walk-in freezer. "He hid something in there. I saw him before he disappeared. Said if anything happened, it was behind the frozen peas." But before they could move, the sound of heavy boots echoed down the hallway. Daniels froze. "Someone's coming." Red shoved the mop into her hands. "Blend in." The door swung open. Officer Greeley stepped in, flashlight beams slicing across the room. His gaze lingered on Carla. "Contractor." "Huh? You don't look like maintenance." Carla forced a nervous smile. "Electrical inspection. Routine check." Greeley's eyes narrowed. "Then maybe you can explain why there's no log entry for you." Daniel stepped forward quickly. "She's with me, sir. Authorized under Section 12B. Greeley stared at him for a long, dangerous second. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Of course. My mistake." He turned toward the freezer. "If you're done, don't forget to check in with the warden before you leave. He likes to know who's on his floors." The door shut behind him, leaving a heavy silence. Carla's hands were shaking. Red exhaled. You need to get out while you still can. If they catch you with what's inside that freezer, you'll vanish just like Soto. Carla hesitated. What's inside? Red swallowed hard. Proof. But not just about the food. The next morning, local news stations reported that an unauthorized visitor had breached security at Greystone. The footage showed only a blurry image of Carla's reflective vest, but she knew they were onto her. She went underground for the next few days, staying in a cheap motel just outside Baton Rouge. From her laptop, she began piecing together contracts between Greystone and a shell company called Harvest Solutions Incorporated. The same name appeared on the shipment labels in Soto's photographs. The company had no public offices, no online presence, but Carla found one address linked to it, an abandoned food processing plant 40 miles north of prison. She drove there just before dawn. The sign on the gate was rusted, half fallen off. Inside, the air reeked of ammonia and mold. Piles of boxes marked Correctional Food Supply sat stacked in the dark. She peeled back one of the labels. Underneath was another, older one, with a skull and crossbones symbol and the words, discarded livestock, not for consumption. Her breath hitched. Oh my God! A faint sound came from deeper inside the building. A door creaking. She turned, flashlight beam trembling. A figure stood in the shadows. It was Officer Greeley. You shouldn't have come here, he said softly, stepping into the light. His uniform was unbuttoned, his expression calm. Too calm. Carla backed away slowly. Where's Soto? He tilted his head, almost curious. He's where all the evidence goes. The air was cold, still, and thick with the smell of decay. Carla's pulse pounded in her ears. And then she saw it. Behind Greeley, through a glass window, the walk-in freezer. The same one from the photo. Only this time, the door was slightly open, and something was moving inside. Carla whispered, What did you do? Greeley smiled faintly. You wanted the truth. He stepped aside, gesturing toward the freezer. Go see it for yourself. The cold air from the open freezer hit Carla's face like a wave of needles. Her flashlight flickered as she stepped forward, every instinct screaming to turn and run. But she couldn't, not after everything she'd uncovered. Inside, frost clung to the steel walls like pale moss. Stacks of sealed boxes lined the shelves. On the floor, a tarp covered something large and uneven. For a second, she thought it might just be spoiled food. Then she saw the edge of a shoe sticking out. Her hand trembled as she pulled the tarp back. Beneath it lay Miguel Soto, or what was left of him. His face was pale frozen, his mouth slightly open as if trying to speak one last word. Clutched tightly in his fist was a small, blood-stained notepad. Carla knelt beside him and carefully pried it free. The first page read, They're feeding us the dead. Her breath caught in her throat. She flipped through the pages, each one filled with hurried handwriting, dates, and initials, names of suppliers, shipment IDs, notes about spoiled meat reprocessed, and shipped back under new labels. And one line circled over and over again. Harvest Solutions is owned by Duval. Before she could take another breath, a voice echoed behind her. I told you to leave. Carla spun around. Greeley stood in the doorway, gun drawn, his face blank. The fluorescent light glinted off the barrel. You're making a big mistake, she said, her voice shaking. No, Greeley replied softly. You did. Soto couldn't keep quiet. Now you're going to join him. He stepped forward, but Carla wasn't the kind of journalist who went down without proof. She hit record on her phone, the red light blinking faintly in her pocket, and held up the notepad. You kill me, and this story goes everywhere. I sent copies to people outside the prison. Greeley hesitated. You're bluffing. Carla stared at him, heart pounding. Try me. For the first time, doubt flickered across his face. His grip on the gun loosened. And that was enough. Carla lunged, shoving a stack of frozen boxes toward him. The sound was deafening, metal crashing against concrete. The gun went off, echoing through the room. Carla ducked, the bullet shattering a box beside her. She grabbed a notepad and sprinted toward the door. Greeley recovered quickly, shouting, You don't get out of here alive. Carla burst into the main hallway, the sound of boots pounding behind her. Frosty air clung to her clothes as she ran through the dark, abandoned corridors of the processing plant. She turned a corner. Dead end. The walls felt like they were closing in. Then she saw it, an old exit door, half rusted shut. She slammed into it with all her strength, again and again, until the metal gave way and she stumbled into the early morning light. Her car was parked by the side road. She threw the notepad onto the passenger seat, started the engine, and sped down the dirt path, tires spinning, gravel flying. Behind her, Greeley emerged from the shadows, gun still in hand. He didn't chase her. He just watched her go, a grim smile on his face. Back in Baton Rouge, Carla uploaded the files, every photo, every note, every document she gathered, to multiple cloud drives. Then she sent an encrypted copy to her contact at the Louisiana Chronicle. She'd done it. She'd exposed them. But something still felt wrong. Too easy. That night, while reviewing Soto's notepad, she noticed something she hadn't seen before. At the very bottom of the last page, in faint pencil marks, were two initials, FD, and beneath them, a strange set of numbers, coordinates. Curiosity gnawed at her. Against her better judgment, she entered the coordinates into Google Maps. They pointed to a stretch of marshland, just a few miles behind Greystone prison. Carla drove there at dawn. The ground was damp, mist rolling across the swampland. As she walked toward the coordinates, the smell hit her, rotting meat, chemicals, decay. She covered her mouth, flashlight trembling. Then she saw it, dozens of seal barrels, half buried in the mud, each one marked with the same red logo, Harvest Solutions. Her light caught one barrel that had cracked open, revealing what was inside. Bones. Human bones. Carla stumbled back, gagging. It wasn't just food corruption. It was disposal. The prison had been feeding inmates meat laced with ground remains, unclaimed bodies from executions, deaths by natural causes, and forgotten dead. She turned to run, but a voice stopped her. Curiosity always kills a story. It was Warden Duval. He stepped out of fog, calm, composed, his boots sinking slightly into the mud. You really think anyone would believe this? He said. You got fragments, rumors, half a story. Meanwhile, I've got lawyers, contracts, and power. You've got nothing. Carla backed away. You're done, Duval. It's over. He smiled faintly. It's never over. You just don't understand the system yet. And then, headlights appeared through the mist. Dozens of vehicles. State police. Cameras. Journalists. Carla's contact at the Chronicle had acted faster than she thought. The story was already live, and now the world was watching. Duval's face hardened as officers surrounded him. Greeley was dragged out of a nearby van, shouting, "You don't know what you're doing. They'll replace us." Carla stood still, shaking, her flashlight beam cutting through the fog. The last thing she heard before they took Duval away was his voice, low, bitter, and almost amused. "You think this stops with me? Look at the contracts. Look who signed them. You've only opened the first door." 2 months later, Greystone Correctional Facility was shut down. Multiple arrests were made. Harvest Solutions was exposed as part of a nationwide scheme, distributing illegal, expired food products to prisons across several states. But Carla couldn't sleep. Every night, she dreamed of the freezer. The photo, Soto's lifeless eyes. Her story won national awards, but it came with a price. One morning, she found an envelope under her door. Inside was a photo of a new prison cafeteria. On one of the trays sat a single meal. Next to it, a small note, "Enjoy your next assignment." They thought the prison food scandal was over. But 2 months later, another inmate died, in another state, eating from the same supplier. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for what comes next. Subscribe.